Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar on the topic The Art, Business and Science of User Experience. I'm Ivana Yevtovic, the webinar coordinator. Design is not making things pretty. Design is problem solving. Our tonight's speaker, Željka Hassel, will tell us about her journey through years of solving problems for different industries, the lessons she learned along the way, and about what it means to solve problems today with modern tools and frameworks as a product designer. She's a user experience professional with combined 20 years of experience in the digital world. She's undergraduate and postgraduate studies at University of Nebraska. She's currently the senior product designer at Huddle, a Nebraska software company changing the futures of sport technology. With over 4 million coaches, athletes, trainers, and analysts across 30 and more sports, further to her current role, Željka has worked on design systems, marketing user experiences for a variety of industries, including financial, outdoor, recreation, restaurant, insurance, loan servicing, and many others. Welcome, Željka, and I'm giving you a word now. Thank you for being with us here.
Thank you so much, Ivana. I am so honored that you guys invited me to do this, to share my passion about what I do. It took me forever to actually edit what I wanted to say because I wanted to tell you everything. Well, there's no time for that, and that's probably not as useful. So I've been editing down my presentation. That is at 80 slides right now, but you're going to see way less than that because I turned some of them off. I had to cut myself off a little bit. I'm also not thinking I'm going to tell you things you've never heard of. A lot of these concepts may seem familiar to you. What I'm really trying to sell is an idea that if you have a software company, if you have a hardware company, if you have a cross-functional team, anywhere you work, you need designers. I think design is important as a function within a team and not just something that you do at the end of the project. Just to make things pretty. Design is about problem solving, and I wanted to show you how I do that, techniques I employ to do it, and then all the sort of case studies that I have collected to show you how I've been thinking about design in my career. But first things first, obviously the perspective that I'm coming from is important. So I wanted to put a caveat here that my career journey is very United States centric. This is where I'm from. I live in Midwest. A lot of my clients are based in the United States, and Huddle is the first sort of very much an international company I worked for. So my horizons are expanding, and I am trying to get better at understanding what's happening across the world when it comes to user experience. So if you hear something that I say and you think, it's not like that where I'm at, that's probably why. And then I also wanted to give a lot of thanks and love to EDI and Bosnia and Herzegovina Future Foundations. I have been super impressed with everything that I've seen that you guys do, all the links you share on LinkedIn and all the amazing, amazing people that are connected to this organization. I stumbled upon this by an accident. I followed some links on Facebook and then found a website for the Futures Foundation, and then just went down the rabbit hole, found donations page, and then I saw all these amazing people that are donating, and I was like, I buy into this. This is a great cause, and I signed up for monthly donations. I had zero expectation that it's going to evolve into this at all. Eddie contacted me right away, and I was like, is that the founder? So I had to go and stalk him online. I'm like, that is the founder. That's how why would a founder of an organization actually care about donators? But pretty soon I found out why. Is it's at the core of what you guys do, and it's insanely impressive how much you have accomplished. And I am so excited to join you on this journey and commit to bringing value to what you are doing. And also by extension of that, all my interactions with Anna and Ivana have been amazing. I talked to Anna a little bit a few days ago, and I'm super impressed with just the youth of Bosnia. You are just as amazing as I thought you would be. And I'm very hopeful about that region of the world, just meeting more and more of you. So kudos to you. And let's kind of get a little bit about me. So why me to tell you this? Well, I don't know. I hope you, you will know after the end of the presentation. But there's a little bit of stats about me. My maiden name is Željka Pavlašević. Pavlašević is kind of a unique last name in Bosnia. It actually moved from Osijek, Croatia back in 1900s. My dad's dad ancestors came from Osijek and they moved to Tuzla. So there's a Tuzla side of my family. I think Eddie and I have that in common. That is our origin there. I was born in Banja Luka, and you're going to find out how long ago. It's been a long time ago, in the 70s. Currently, I live in Crete, Nebraska, and it's not Crete, Greece. I've been made fun of for the city name a few times. No, it's Crete, Nebraska. It's very rural, small college town in the middle of nowhere, if you would. Typically I would have to commute about 30 minutes to Lincoln, which is capital city of Nebraska, to go to work. And I am currently employed at Hudl as a product designer. And it's an amazing journey, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about that. But first things first, this is what my life is actually like. So everything I do is a hobby compared to these two little men and one big man. The little one with the widow's peak on there, his name is Eli. The one with messy hair, his name is Samuel. And then that's my husband laying on the grass. This is our life. We're totally constantly wrestling each other. So there's that. To give you a bit more background on like my origin story, as a kid, I was obsessed with Disney and illustration and storytelling that Disney was doing at the time. And my favorite story of all time was Cinderella. I really enjoyed the transformational sort of nature of that. And even then I knew I was not necessarily princess material. So who I thought really had the power in the story, I mean, I know the story is named Cinderella, but the real powerful character was the fairy godmother, because she came in, she made changes, she used creative problem solving to do things, and then she helped others achieve their goals. So I sort of, even as a kid, started kind of plugging into this idea of becoming a fairy godmother for people. And this evolved into who my clients were in 1987. So my clients in 1987 were my classmates, mostly girls, that wanted me to do illustrations and coloring sheets for them that included Smurfettes. So I drew uncolored Smurfettes like it was like I was just printing them out, and they would go in color, and they would always give me specs of like, I want her hair this long, and I want her hat like this, and shoes like this. So even as a kid, I started sort of learning how to plug into people's needs and really create things that fit their needs. Now, it's 2020, and my clients are global football teams that are on Premier League or Bundesliga, or they're NBA teams in the United States. And I kind of do the same thing. I talk to them, I try to anticipate and figure out their needs, and then create products that solve their problems. Another sort of thing that is also an origin story for me is when I was a kid, I was obsessed with science fiction. I think anybody that goes into product design and technology has that sort of sci-fi love as well. And favorite TV show of all times is Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it came out in '87 again. So there's something about that year that seems to be relevant. What I loved about this, you have a cross-functional team, they're flying a spaceship, and they're constantly solving new problems. I like to think, and I know you may think this is a bit of a hyperbole on my end, but I like to think that that's what I do right now. So on the right side, that's actually my team that I work on closely. We work together every day. I blocked out their names just for the privacy concerns, but you can see their smiling faces, and there's me at the end. And just by their titles, you kind of realize that there's a group of engineers and QA, and there's a Scrum Master, a product owner. So this is my Starship Enterprise crew, and this is who I get to fly my spaceship every day. Now, I kind of talked about generally where my story comes from, and now this is my life and work timeline with a little bit of emojis and logos and flags. I was born in Banja Luka in 1979, so you can kind of see the old school Banja Luka emblem up there. We lived there until 92, and then we moved to Slovenia, my mom and dad and myself, and we were refugees in Slovenia between 92 and 96. And then 96, we started to realize that going back to Banja Luka may not be in the cards for us, and staying in Slovenia is not going to be easy. So we started applying for resettlement to different countries. We tried Canada, that's where my aunt's from. If you looked up chat, she's in Montreal. We tried Australia, we tried New Zealand, and none of that was successful. And finally, USA opened their borders and we moved to United States in 96. I started college in 97, and between 97 and 2001, I got my Bachelor of Arts degree at University of Nebraska. In 99, I actually got my first job at university. So when I say 20 years, I actually do mean from 1999 until today, is I've been working in the world of digital. If you remember in the 99, I think Photoshop was at like version 2. The main browser was Netscape. A lot of stuff that we have today didn't exist. So I've been doing this for a while, and there's a lot of lessons and transformations learned along the way. In 2005, I got my master's degree in advertising, journalism, and marketing from the same university. And I also got married to my husband. And then that's when I started sort of taking a pivot from what was an art degree to begin with to more of a sort of business, marketing, advertising, technology direction. And I got my first job at an advertising agency called Bailey Lauerman. Bailey Lauerman is a well-known agency in Nebraska, but they have a national reputation as well. And that's where I got exposed to clients like Allstate and Union Pacific Railroad and Disney and so on. So it was a great 2 years where I learned a lot. And then in 2008, I got another job at another local advertising agency. And you kind of see there's a pattern. I like to work at places that have nice, neat, circular logos. I don't know if that's just a Nebraska thing or what. But I was at Swanson Russell for 7 years, and that's where I really learned how to design. And I learned all the sort of basics of creative and layout and digital. And I worked on their digital team. And I also had 2 kids while I was there. And then in 2015, I started to realize I'm getting kind of bored with marketing and advertising in general. And I kind of wanted to expand my horizons and get a little bit more closer to Nebraska entrepreneurial environment. Nebraska between 2008 and 2015 actually started all these new companies. That's kind of where Huddle started as well. So all this activity was happening and I wanted to be part of it. So I got a job at a student loan servicing company that also was expanding their horizon to become more of a kind of a technology holding company at the time. I was there for 3 years and I did a lot of sort of, I straddled product, and I also was on marketing side and did a lot of like advertising but all in digital space still. In 2018, I decided I want to get fully on product and be part of agile product teams. And that's when I joined Speedway. Speedway is an e-commerce company that sells cart parts, which was a super interesting learning experience, how to actually measure the value of your design. And then in 2019, I hopped over to Huddle, and I've been there since then. So not a long time, but it's been a very productive year and a half or so. Now I put you in time. Now let's put you in space. Just a little bit about Nebraska. It is relevant where you work in the United States. COVID made that a little bit more obscure and less relevant, but tech hubs like Palo Alto and Austin and New York City and Chicago and bigger cities in US are typically the ones that attract talent. I was actually telling Eddie about how there's a lot of local patriots that stayed in Lincoln and stayed in Nebraska and build their companies here. So Nebraska is an interesting place, and there's really nice people, and honestly, it's not for everyone. Both of these are tourism slogans from the state, so you kind of understand this is how we see each other and this is how we're seen. So that's kind of my journey in time and place. And now let's get to work. So I really love memes. I did not overdo them for this presentation, but this one kind of explains what I do. In 6 panels, you can kind of see like what my friends think I do. They think I play all day. My parents think I'm like in some sort of executive board and I'm presenting. My kids think I talk to athletes because I work for a sports company. Society, general people, when you say product design, you're like, so you code? Not exactly. I think I'm like in this land of future and I'm constantly thinking about new things. So I feel really cool. I feel like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. But what I actually do is I'm on Zoom a lot right now. I think COVID changed that for a lot of us, and all my collaboration kind of looks like that screen. So, but if you, jokes aside, if you really want to think about it, what you do as a designer, you adopt. You basically change and you adapt to the times, to the needs of customers, to your team, to the business, technology, whatever. You change and you adopt. I had to do it for 20 years, and it's always good. So let's start from the back and kind of go backwards. I'm currently employed at Hudl. I've been Hudl for over a year. Hudl is a Nebraska-grown sports tech company, makes software, hardware, and they provide services to teams and athletes worldwide. This is our headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's about 4 years old, and it's sitting empty right now. It's super nice in there if you want to ever Google and kind of see the interior design. It's a testament to what an awesome company it is, and it's been a great pleasure. But right now, currently, we're not allowed to enter unless we really have a lot of needs to go there. This is sort of a little bit of Hudl facts. We have about 2,200 employees in about 20 plus countries. The people that I work with the most right now are located in Netherlands. My manager is in England, and then several different states in United States. We have about 6 million registered users right now, 160 teams, and across 35 different sports. There's about 2,600 Division I and professional teams, which is important. Those are like NBA or global football teams, 5 million app downloads. And then you kind of see a quick listing of our products. The ones that I have in orange are Focus and Replay, and those are the 2 products that I have worked on since I've been at Hudl. So let's talk about Hudl Focus. Hudl Focus is a relatively new product at Hudl. It's about 3 years old. It started as, if I hear right, it's like a Raspberry Pi attached to a video camera. That's kind of how it started, and evolved into like a very solid, very nice piece of hardware in the last 3 years. It also tells you how fast Hudl moves and how fast and risky we like to think when we move into new environments. I work on a cross-functional Scrum-based team, so that's my enterprise crew that I showed you earlier. My role on Hudl Focus is I'm one of the 2 designers on Focus team, and there's about 40 of us, give or take. Both of us are in charge of end-to-end user experience for customer and internal users as well. What that means is this camera needs to be sourced, it needs to be assembled, it needs to be quality controlled, it needs to be shipped, then it needs to be installed at somebody's wall, then it needs to be serviced, then recordings start, and then recordings need to be uploaded to Hudl for the teams to watch. So there's a lot of steps, and customer journey is actually pretty wide. We're currently working on making that better. Sometimes I'm redesigning app flow. Sometimes I'm actually rethinking the manufacturing QC process. We're in the middle of that right now because our cameras are getting shipped. The season is starting in US and in high schools and small colleges. So we're doing a lot of that right now. I'm also currently thinking about data design. So as this camera is getting shipped and built, we're collecting logs as things are possibly failing or passing, like lens quality and things like that, that really get it deep into hardware engineering. Mind you, I have an art degree. I don't know if you remember that from earlier. So as a designer, I have to adopt and learn how to speak our engineers' language. So you kind of see, like, as a designer, if you're thinking about this field being easily adoptable and flexible adaptable, and learning how to do these things on the fly is super important. We're currently also working to find the best way to enter European markets. So Huddle is only used by few teams, and I think I just talked to both of them. So there's one in Finland and one in Luxembourg. We're trying to see how to enter European markets and what that actually means for us. So that's super exciting. Hopefully that may mean that I get to travel a little bit more when all of this is over, but I'm very excited also to get on a call, and there's somebody speaking Bosnian on there. So very, very much looking forward to that. What my day-to-day may look like, though, is we may be conducting, as you can see, all these user interviews. So in order to enter those European markets, and we needed to understand sort of what happens at a higher level of sports in the United States. So we called all these different Division I teams in US colleges, and then gathered all this data. So as a designer, I get to get on a call, I get to talk to people, I get to ask them questions, and then we compile those learnings to share to the team. And then actually that's how we decide where we're gonna work next. I also covered some possibly sensitive data to kind of not really show that in case somebody's watching this. So there's a little bit of privacy there, but it kind of gives you an idea as a designer, like you get to collect data and actually shape it. I did have a great help there with some other designers, and it's definitely a team effort whenever I talk about any of these things. So after you do that, then you get to actually design. So when I said it's art, science, and business, when we think about typically about design, it's somebody that paints colors and puts fonts together and illustrates. Well, yeah, but you have to do all this other mountain of things, and it's tip of the iceberg when it actually comes to layout. So there's just some layouts that I worked on when I first started that allows our internal teams to map scoreboard digits. So when machine learning algorithms are looking at scoreboards, they can actually read them. So that's kind of up next for Huddle in general, is employing our brilliant machine learning team to get even better at interpreting video for our users. So that's one product that I worked on. Another one that I worked on, it's called Huddle Replay. This one is a little bit an odd one out from the Focus team, just because it's an elite product. It is, I'm working on a cross-functional Scrum-based team, so it's a different team, but same sort of role setup there. We need to understand analyst and coach needs. I don't know how deep any of you had a chance to dig into how global soccer teams are set up, but usually there's a main coach and there's a bunch of assistant coaches, and then they employ these analysts that sit on the side and grab data when the game is happening and mark all the missed opportunities and goals and really do it player by player. This is actually an art form. So analysts across teams in Europe, Australia, and United States do this at a level that's really amazing. And then we have a product called Sports Code, that's Huddle Sports Code, that handles a lot of this stuff. What Replay does is actually takes the data from Sports Code and takes it to the bench. So a coach can do a live review as game is happening, so they can pull an athlete aside and say, hey, you should do this better. Look what you did here. And there's data that supports it. The interesting problem, again, for a designer is you're trying to solve this problem and it has kind of an interface, but it sits on top of all these other things that you need to understand. You need to understand how networking works at a stadium. You need to understand how analyst talks to a coach. And a lot of research goes into actually designing these interfaces. One example of what that research looks like is when we try to identify our 4 personas that make this work. So you kind of run into finding out all these different points of view that enable or disable your product from working. There's a little bit more from that same workflow as we're experimenting with different ideas and different flows. So you kind of see that iterative work is super important. And it really enables you to test with users. So as we were designing, we would get on the call with all these teams and then show them what we're doing and get their feedback. So that's a little bit of what I've done at Huddle. Now let's get to the meat of this. So let's talk about art first. When Eddie proposed the title to me, it went something like Art of User Experience Design. And I even knew then that there's more to it, but I think art is super important. So that's kind of where I'm going to start. So it all started with this man. In Ljubljana, I just had a crazy luck to meet Ismet Mojsinovic, who is an amazing painter, and he's son of Ismet Mojsinovic. Ismet Mojsinovic is known for these fantastic posters that he did for Olympic Games in 1984. I don't think anybody understands human form like this guy, and I had crazy luck as a 13-year-old to meet him, and he taught me everything about anatomy and human body and just sort of transferring what you see in real space on a piece of paper. So I dabbled in illustration a little bit. This is just sort of a little bit of my artwork that always sits on the side. It's always there, and I may go back to it someday, but currently, obviously, I'm busy with other things, but art is still there. Art never went anywhere. But when you think about art, when it comes to user experience design, there's actually other ways you can think about it. So Brad Frost threw this concept out 10 years ago of an idea of atomic design. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this idea, but basically takes the idea of Gestalt, which is sort of that philosophical and art concept that basically says that a whole is more than the sum of its parts. As a designer, if you have a very complicated system that you have to work on, where do you start? It can get very overwhelming. And Brad Frost pioneered this idea that sort of avalanched into design systems and systematic thinking about design. And this is sort of how he thought about this. You start with atoms, then those atoms form molecules, those molecules form organisms, and then you create templates, and then they create web pages. Let me explain to you what that looks like in practice. So when I started working at Speedway Motors, when you actually looked at tally of all the pages look different. Like there's one button, I think they probably have like 10 to 15 button styles, and you may find this into any like older systems that haven't had a more systematic approach to their design. So the first thing I did is I designed a element pattern library. As a designer, you're going to have to learn how to zoom out and zoom in as needed. So I zoomed out, I saw there's inconsistencies, and then I zoomed in and try to find general, more consistent ways to handle things. So you can kind of see all the button styles and all the different ways to handle boxes, prices, iconography, and so on. So that's kind of the atoms of this. If you look at the Brad Frost's approach. And then it became something like this. So this is more of a theoretical design that I worked on, where you can take fonts and colors and little bits and pieces and actually start creating templates, then eventually turn into pages. This approach turned into design systems. So in 2018, design systems were a super hot topic. Everybody's working on one. Everybody had one. If you are interested in this, these are sort of the main design system out there, Google Material being the most famous one. And that's the screenshot that I have in background. If you ever want to study how to approach this, so it's like a totally like a meta approach, because if you take Google's Material design system, you can build anything with it. But Apple human interface guidelines inform anytime you're working on iOS apps. There's Microsoft's Fluent, Atlassian has their own, and so on. Everybody has one, including Huddle. So before I started at Huddle, they spent about 3 years figuring out their own a design system called Uniform, which such a clever name because it implies obviously sports uniform, but also makes all the experiences uniform. I had caveat, I had nothing to do with Uniform. I just get privilege and honor to use it. So some of the most talented local designers and national designers worked on this. How I get to use it though, and now you kind of see the familiar screens from replay, is I go into libraries, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to use Figma, but Figma is kind of an industry standard for designing user experiences for apps and anything these days, and they keep getting more complicated and allowing for more functionality. But what our awesome uniform design team actually did is I have all these elements. I just need to drag and drop and put content in, and it makes my job a lot easier so I can focus on actually providing deeper value for our users. When you start out as a designer, starting here may not be as satisfying. I had many years spent on me deciding what type of colors I want to use, or me deciding what kind of iconography or typography I want to use. At this point, 20 years into it, I don't mind using somebody else's design, especially if I think it's so well done as my friends from Uniform have done it. So another thing that I've been working on at Huddle that's been sort of a huge revelation for us is we're, as designers, trying to become more service designers. So basically taking that end-to-end front store to the back room type of approach to design. So let me show you a video that explains what service design is. I promise it's only a minute long, and let me know if you can't hear that.
There are many forms of design, but do you know what service design is? When you have two coffee shops right next to each other, and each sells the exact same coffee at the exact same price, service design is what makes you walk into one and not the other. Innovating services include various disciplines beside design. There's a common language to let these disciplines work together efficiently as a team. It's called service design thinking and is based around 5 principles. First of all, service design should be user-centered, so services are experienced through the customer's eyes. It should also be co-creative to ensure that all stakeholders are included in the process.
Hello.
Sequencing visualizes services as interrelated actions, and evidencing makes them tangible. Finally, service design should be holistic, so the entire environment of a service is considered. Service designers use many tools, like stakeholder maps, personas, customer journey maps, cultural probes, storyboards, service prototypes, service blueprints, and many, many more. There's a new book about these tools and how they can help you design better services. This is Service Design.
So I highly recommend reading Service Design Thinking. I learned a lot from it. When they talk about cross-functional teams and getting everybody involved, here I have an example of a map that we did employing the principles of service design. We basically took our, so the camera that I showed you before, it needs to be assembled, it needs to be flashed, provisioned, and then we need to check the lenses to see if they're working correctly. So as a designer, I was able to actually work with my team and figure out what stages does a manufacturing worker go through, what sort of tools that they need to do to use, how long these stages last, and how it's all interconnected, and any possible errors that may come up in this. So this was a super helpful tool for us to predict what our season of assembling devices may look like, and what can go wrong and what can't, and really helped us sort of align and create a complete visual picture between all of us. So we're not constantly talking in terms and maybe saying one thing but thinking the other. But as a designer, you're going to have power to use tools like this to get your team on the same page. So that's the art. But let's talk about business now. One thing about designers is we're idealists. A lot of us are like, we're artistic, we have high level of ideals and expectations, we believe in ethics, but at the end of the day, whoever you're working for, they need to make money, and you have to understand how design makes money for the companies that you work for. I try to put a slide that includes some of my clients, and I realized again, I had to edit myself because I could have probably put another 3 slides just like this to show you all the different clients I worked for. This is there's a bit of a timeline here, but one thing that a lot of these places have in common is they have a highly technical products like Raytheon airplanes or Exmark mowers, or Union Pacific is a railroading company. Honeywell, obviously, you guys are familiar with. There's a bit of banks and loan servicing, but also you see clients like NBA on there as well, and that's kind of my new addition to this mix. Some of my most fun jobs were for Lincoln Children's Zoo and some of these smaller local clients that you get once in a while. But all of these were very much learning experiences, and I had an opportunity to work on digital ads and emails and different mini sites, training videos, e-commerce websites, end-to-end experiences for all of them, redesigns, and so on. And it's been fantastic 20 years. But it all started at university. So as Futures Foundation thinks about university, there's definitely a connection and in Nebraska between all the businesses and people that started university and then what they were able to bring into their local economy too. So not everybody left, and for us that stayed, it became a very rewarding journey. So one thing that designers, again, we don't like to think about money. Just get me, like, I want my users to be enabled. I want my ideals to be met, but like, I don't want to think about money. Well, yes, but you have to. So there's been a great study that's been done by McKinsey. And if you visit this link that I have outlined on the bottom, you can find when they studied, I think mostly American companies, but there's I think 300 publicly listed companies that they countries in different world regions and industries. And what they came around to realize that companies that invested in design and had levels of design maturity were actually performing better when it comes to business, and were bringing more money and more value to the companies themselves. So this article really gets into the weeds of that, and it's a great sort of way to learn about that. But these are the 4 sort of things that they discovered that was important, that brought design up to the surface. One thing that super stands out to me is this continuous iteration. As a designer, you need to be able to know where to start with iteration, what's the smallest slice of value that you need to show to your users, and how can you iterate on that to make your products better. At Huddle, we're working on how we can learn faster. So the way you do it is by rapid prototyping and then meeting with your users as fast as you can. Some examples from my previous life at the loan servicing companies. This is basically literally connecting your dollars to user value. There's different techniques you can employ by doing this. For example, one is by calculators and marketing pages, but both of these examples show how financial products benefit from design, and how you can empower your user to make good decisions, but then also help your business make money. Another way to think about the value and how design fits into cross-functional teams is this sort of idea that you have viability, which is business value, which is money on one side, and then you have feasibility, which is technology, which is how we build stuff, on a second corner, and then a third corner you have desirability, which is design. When things get complicated, all of my teams, we always go back to this. Whenever we're building something, even if it's a smaller feature, you ask yourself, is it viable? Is it feasible? Is it desirable? And this allows different team members on Scrum team to come together and solve problems together. And if you took any of one of these corners out, you're not going to have a complete product. So again, if you're working on teams that is really good at making money and making business go forward, and it's great at technology, but it's lacking design, I highly encourage you to either train designers or hire them or find them and build them up to kind of fulfill this sort of a three-legged approach to product development. But world's complicated. I mean, I can't even tell you how many different interfaces I have to work in, and you have to find a balance between your objectives and key results, between all your coworkers on Zoom, between all the data and dashboards you're looking at, all the Jira tickets, and then there's design at the end. And you have to, as a designer, be able to plug into all of these and make them work for you and be able to follow along. So that's about business. How about science? I mean, like, science and design, science lives on its own. Well, yes, but no, you can actually approach design quite scientifically as well. So my favorite thing about design approaches is this concept of double diamond. What this actually means is that there's a clear process that problem solving in design actually happens with. And you have this idea that there's two stages. Stage one is you have to figure out what is the right thing you want to design. And then second stage is you have to design that thing right. The idea is that you always have to go through these stages and you have to diverge, which in my world is consider all the options, consider the risks, consider competition, consider primary and secondary research. And then you compile insights from that, and then you move into themes, and then you start actually kind of converging and defining what you want to do. And then the second part of that is now you get to ideate. So again, you blow up your iterations, you come up with so many screens and ideas, and then you start doing user testing, and then you slowly start narrowing down, and you finally arrive at your final solution. It is so easy to skip diverging. It's so easy, and it's a constant training for your team and yourself to not come up with ideas and just run with it. You pick that one idea to sound like first thing came to mind, team agrees, you go on, and then you invest all this money into it, and then you realize that you didn't consider 10 other things that could have made it better. So staying in all of these stages in a proper amount of time is super important. Again, this kind of illustrate what diverging looks like. This is all unused design. So as I was working on a module and a feature on Huddle's backend, I came up with all these different designs that are same problem, different solutions, and I actually didn't like any of them after I did user testing and I showed it to my peers. So you have to kind of lose sensitivity and lose your ego and really be able to absorb feedback and vet it properly. That's kind of where your sort of experience as a designer comes in, when you know what type of feedback is actually irrelevant, but you should welcome it always. And then another thing that's super important, it's research. So this diagram, I think even by looking at it, you can tell it's kind of old. This is like an old concept, but every time you need to do user research and you're figuring out, should I send out a survey? Should I call somebody? Where should I start? You're always working on two different axes. One is axis between attitude and behavior, basically what people tell you they're going to do and what people actually do. You're going to soon find out as you dig into user behavior that those can be two different things. Who we think we are, it's not necessarily who we are. And then obviously, as any research, there's the qualitative and quantitative sort of aspect to it. Qualitative for me would be stories, and then quantitative is data. We always tried at Huddle to collect both. So you have anecdotes, you have stories, you have kind of user pain points, and then you have the quantitative, the data where things actually break, what actually works and what doesn't, where do users drop off. You kind of have to put those two together to get the full picture. So an example that I worked on, like probably my second week at Huddle was, we had to figure out if coaches actually care about the score in the game, which the answer is yes. But when we look at professionally broadcasted games, there's that sort of nice little designed score on the bottom. Well, we had competing priorities and we had to decide, do we just show them an inset the camera's catching of the actual scoreboard in the corner, or do we actually spend time designing and working on this thing? And I was in charge of setting up a survey and actually figuring out, can users live with the little square scoreboard in the corner that you see in that example? And we got most resounding yes. So we decided, hey, we have other things we want to invest in. We're going to come back to all the like nicely designed graphics, which I hope may be next project for me, which I'm super excited about. But for now, let's keep this. And it's been proven to be super valuable to teams across the United States. And the magic of this, I would have to have an engineer to explain to you how this all happens. But you have a camera that's installed in just one place, in one wall in the middle of the court, and somehow our brilliant engineers are able to turn that camera around and capture a scoreboard that's on the side walls. So that's kind of how that works. But as a designer, you have to plug into user needs and be able to bring that back to your team. So you did all this work, you put out layouts, all this other stuff. So now I have to know, like, okay, like, but has it really made a difference? There's so many different methodologies out there. When I worked on e-com websites, two main methodologies that we used were heat maps on one side. So you can kind of see what users are clicking on your pages, what's the most engaging content, where they go. And the second element or second dimension to that was basically analysis on the Google Analytics side. So a lot of coding needs to happen for all this to work. But once you actually start comparing this thing, once you publish a feature, you can actually follow its success and know if the decisions that may seem subjective at the time to the team that's making them are actually making things better for the user or not. A lot of times you may find out your assumptions were completely wrong and you operate in a bubble, and these are the ways you can actually get that cleared up for yourself. So this is what that looked in actual layout. This team, obviously, I haven't worked with for about 1.5 years, but they're making great progress, making changes and iterating on this, and kind of tells you like decisions that we had to make at each stage of the process so users actually convert. So those are the case studies. Now I want to kind of switch to the sort of like, what can a UX designer bring to your company? Why hire people like me, or why become a UX designer? So these are some of the themes that come up. We can shape the work for you. Mix of strategy and empathy allows designer to set up research, define value increments, match the design to what's technically feasible and what's viable. They bring users to the table. We tell stories. We can create a shape to the work that sometimes may seem ambiguous and unclear. We can paint the vision. So the diagram that I showed you before that captured the QA of a camera, I'm actually able to then ask question, hey, at this point in our process, what do you want our app to look like? Or what do you want to show on the screen for the user? Or do we need to put a sticker on the box? Like what actually happens? Painting that vision is a superpower of a designer in a cross-functional team, and designers can definitely bring that to the table. Another one is build user empathy. It is so easy when you're solving technical problems and you're knee deep into whatever your team is working on. My team right now is working on our infrastructure being completely 100% solid for the season. So as the videos are uploading, there's no problems with that. I mean, you kind of lose the user there. You're constantly digging through code, testing, doing load tests, making all these technical decisions. It's so easy for a team to lose empathy for the end user and kind of think about, what is that coach thinking when his video cannot be uploaded at the right amount of time on a Friday night, and they actually want to coach with it even that evening or tomorrow morning. There's an expectation set there, and their jobs and their livelihoods and their careers and relationships depends on what you do, and understanding that is super important. Create a visual language. So some examples that I showed you, obviously there's the art of user experience design. Creating a common visual language is super helpful across the board, and it makes things cleaner, simpler, easier to use, and helps everyone get their desired outcomes. And then finally, bring business value. There's definitely a return on investment when it comes to investing in design, and understanding that your businesses are going to grow and get better. And by bringing more and more designers and introducing more design maturity to it is super, super important. And there's a few more things that I want to talk about. So Eddie asked me, kind of talk about like your early days of your career. And I have to think about it, it's been 20 years ago, so many things have changed. This thing didn't exist when I was in college. So we had no smartphones, things were completely different, but some principles, I try to think about principles that are still resonant and even in this age. So don't be afraid to enter through the back door. I had to become a coder and developer before I was able to get companies to take me seriously as a digital designer. So you may have to stretch yourself in order to achieve your goals, and it may not be a linear sort of path to your career. So enter through the back door. If there's a company you want to work for, start as an intern. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Second thing that I did, I met people. So all the connections, you never know where you're going to work with somebody again. Meeting people and networking is very important and has made so much difference to me. People that hired me at Hudl were people I used to hang out with and work with 15 years ago. So all of this stuff makes a difference, and any connections you make, they're all relevant. It's like kind of putting a signal out there that you're ready to work and get out on the scene. Show up no matter what. Even if you're not ready, even if your portfolio, your portfolio is not there, it doesn't matter. Show up. You're going to learn something. Don't be afraid to go out in the world being imperfect. Nobody's perfect, and every single experience that you have that's a touch point with somebody is going to teach you something. Diversify. So in my college years, I took classes I took a lot of classics. I took American literature. I sort of went to all these different places. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. I want to go learn. Be curious and constantly learn and absorb things. It may not make sense right now, but I can tell you 20 years from now, I feel like I followed signs on the road to get me here, and all of that amounted to something. And then stay uncomfortable. Even after 20 years, I'm constantly searching that high of discomfort. And anytime I'm at work and I look at my week and I see the meetings and things I need to do, and I'm like, this is going to be a piece of cake week, I knew in the back of my mind that that's not good. So Hudl really, like the speed we're moving at and just the sheer quality of my coworkers helps me be constantly uncomfortable. And that's how you grow. Discomfort is great, and be able to hang out in discomfort even at expense of not looking very smart. And I'm used to looking stupid right now. Like that is like every time I feel like I'm like, oh, what's that? I don't understand that. That's how I know I'm growing. So I constantly search that high, no matter how humbling it is. And then some things I wish I knew. I think the first one, we all know this, but once you when you're in it, you don't really realize how important this is. University is not the real world. I feel like, at least in my experience, my education was very abstract. I learned how to practically do my job at my job. Projects we worked on, all the capstone projects we had and everything else really existed in these like silos, and it was like a vacuum sealed high level thinking that is not going to necessarily make you employable someday. So as you're attending university classes, you have to understand you have to balance it out with the real world experience. Strategy before design. When I was young, I would see these final products and they looked so beautiful and they're so amazing. I never understood the strategy that went into them. So understanding that all this thinking needs to go before you can put like an interface on top of it was something that took me a while to understand, because I would start with the style I like and work backwards. And then you have a strategy that doesn't match the end result. Understanding how to connect those dots is definitely important. Meet your heroes. If you have heroes in the business and otherwise, meet them, because you're going to learn they're human. You're going to learn they're imperfect. You may get disappointed too. That's okay. They are who they are. And I met a few of my heroes and I left with inspired disappointment. Basically, I'm telling you, all of you, especially young designers, you can get there and you will get there. And don't be afraid to look at somebody and don't think like, oh, that's never going to be me. It is going to be you. You just need to take the steps to get there. Get your research on. When I was young, I always just jumped into things and I never diverged. I was like, oh, I like this and I'm just going to follow this path. Stay researching. Learn, interview, read, do primary and secondary research, look at the competitors, immerse yourself in the field that you're in. And then finally, figure out who you are. I know this is like, it takes a while and there's a level of maturity that sort of happens that you cannot fake. You can't like just all of a sudden be 50-year-old, you kind of have to take the steps. But knowing who you are and knowing who you're not is super important when you're young, and knowing like, this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do. I always knew that I don't want to work in print. I knew I don't want to work in anything that doesn't allow my users to interact with it. So I didn't want to work on any printed ads. I didn't want to work on TV advertising. And that sort of constantly pushed me into software. And that's kind of how I ended up here. So, and then finally, there's also this. So I'm telling you all this there's quite of a vacuum. This is all, pretty pictures and ideas. But there's a world around us. And there's a fourth topic that I sort of regret not introducing to this, and it's topic of ethics in design. This is becoming more and more important as you see what's happening. United States is going through a definite crisis, and there's a lot of things that have been around for a while, and it's finally bubbling up to the surface, and there's quite a bit of reckoning. When you see that stick to sports headline there, there's a definite connection between racial discrimination in the United States, its history, and sports. As a sports company, we have to think about what that means for Hudl and what supporting diversity and inclusion and democratizing innovation actually means to us as a company. And it's a work in progress. Nobody's perfect at this. But as a designer, you are making decisions that impact the real world, and thinking about that, and thinking about how, whether you're working on facial recognition software or social media patterns or anything like that, you have to think about the ethics part of this. But that's a whole another presentation. So I'm going to sort of end right here. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I am definitely excited to answer anything, but that is my presentation and I lost my voice. So yeah, sorry I talked so much, and yeah, so that's it. I can't hear you, Ivana.
Now?
I can hear it now. Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me now. Okay, it was really a pleasure listening to you. It was your life story and your professional experience is amazing. And thank you for reminding us about important things. Okay, we already have 2 questions. How do you balance this ethics and target audience? For example, if you have a customer whose values don't match yours, do you have any advice how to empathize?
That's very hard to do. You have to, as a designer, think about potential abuse of your products. So, for example, we have a camera installed in gyms. You have to think about security. So security is an important thing. Who do you give privileges and rights? When you are dealing with people's lives, you have to think about. There's a lot of laws around talking to athletes in our world. So obviously you have to pay attention to that and consider privacy of people that you work with. The best way to truly empathize is dig deeper into subject matter, and depending on who you're talking to, completely immersing yourself and understanding what their world looks like. Also consider, teams are highly competitive. Think about what kind of data you are showing or hiding from them at any given time. And it's something to constantly get good at. Another aspect of user empathy and that is super important is accessibility. So that's a whole another presentation again. And I have some links for you that you can check out after this presentation that I should probably share to show you that there's all kinds of stuff out there that, let me find that allows you to ensure that anybody can enjoy your digital experience, regardless if they have a disability, which could range from blindness to being hard of hearing or any other cognitive disability. In my other jobs, I spent a pretty decent amount of time considering this. So accessibility is a huge topic, and it's something that you're not just magically good at. You have to constantly iterate and learn from users with these problems. So many, many dimensions to ethics in digital design.
Okay, thank you for your answer and for your shared links. What about design sprints? Do you have experience with it? And if you do, how does it compare to Double Diamond approach?
I think design sprints and Double Diamond solve two different problems. Double Diamond is sort of an extended way to approaching a problem that may not be fully defined. Design sprint could fit into one of the inside of a Double Diamond. So we are planning a design sprint fairly soon, where we're going to actually look at our app experience when you install the focus camera. Design sprint is like an intense 5-day process where you're supposed to solve one problem at the end, test with the users. So it sort of condenses something that you could have done on a larger timeline with a bigger team. I think the requirement of design sprint is to having a very well-defined, solvable, complicated, yet easy to understand problem, versus a Double Diamond is sort of like understanding a bigger area of influence. That's at least kind of how I use these two different approaches.
Okay, these are the questions for now, but I invite, okay. Okay, what is your opinion on minimalist design, and do you have any advice on minimalist design properly?
You know, as I said, like the different design styles, when I was sort of starting out in this field, I was really locked into different type of design approaches to, so you have the minimalist, and you have like the more complicated three-dimensional designs and all these sort of phases that happen. I think after working in this and kind of seeing how different trends come and go, you realize that solid strategy always comes before picking out design type. Now, minimalist design has its place, and obviously you need to take elements out that are not necessary. So we all have to approach things as minimalists. But to me, the way I look at each different customer, each design problem, each entity like Huddle have their own unique design constraints and opportunities, and looking at it from that perspective kind of equalizes all different design approaches. And if you want to do a brutalist website for your new music band, that's fine. Or if you want to do a minimalist design for your credit card, that's totally fine. But I feel like that comes at the end. All this other stuff needs to come before you make a design solution at the end of the process.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. And those are questions for now. We will wait for a minute or more. I want to thank you in the name of Bosnia Herzegovina Futures Foundation. It was a pleasure listening to you, and we are honored to have you on our team, we can say. And your story was inspiring, and advices you gave, I think we all, despite of our profession, we can all use them, and you know, it's usable for us all. And thank you so much. It was really pleasuring listening to you. Okay, we will
Thank
wait.
you so much. If anybody wants to contact me for any sort of personal advice, I am definitely open to that. Anybody interested digging deeper in any of these topics, I'm definitely fine. This link that I have on the screen is going to give you a compilation of all the people I follow on Twitter, some books that are kind of the staple in when it comes to product design, and then some concepts and general ideas there. So design field in the United States is always bubbling with ideas, and our new frontier is diversity and inclusion. So a lot of my Twitter follows are for women of color and women and men of color, and especially women in tech. So I support diversity and inclusion quite a bit. So you're going to see a lot of that type of content on there as well.
Yeah, that's amazing and inspiring, especially in these sensitive times as we can see what's happening. So thank you for your work in all of these areas. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank everyone for watching. And okay, we have one more question. Okay, we have thank you note. We have thank you note with a heart. And I'm really glad that everyone enjoyed this and stayed to the end. And I hope I see you on the next Futures webinars, and good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
It was super inspiring. Thank you. One more note for you.
I saw that. Awesome.
Okay.